Hey, it's Morlem bringing you a guide slash gameplay video for the new Battle Royale mode in Black Desert Online called Shadow Arena. As always, check the description for a timestamp table of contents if you'd like to skip to a specific part of the video. Many of us were skeptical when BDO announced the Battle Royale mode, but they've actually done a really good job so far, and I've been playing it pretty much non-stop since it came to the NA servers on Wednesday. In case there's anyone watching who isn't familiar with the Battle Royale genre, basically you enter an arena with, in this case, 50 other players, and the last person standing wins. You run around killing chests, monsters, or other players in order to get loot and make yourself stronger, and you avoid a circle of dark fog which periodically shrinks, making the arena smaller and smaller. You can enter either as a solo against other solos or as a group of up to 3 against other groups of up to 3. At the beginning of the Shadow Arena, we start as a fast-moving black spirit and will need to possess an adventurer to get started. The game will launch your black spirit in a random direction, so if you're playing with a group, you may want to take advantage of your speed as a black spirit to get to the same part of the map before choosing a class. You can either run along the ground or jump twice and hold left click to launch your spirit into the air. Each class begins with their basic left and right click attacks, sprinting attacks, F button attack, and some sideways or forward click attacks as well. This match I'm choosing a warrior because it's my favorite class and it turns out to be pretty strong in this mode. Valkyrie is another all-around good class in both solos and threes. Berserker starts with by far the best basic attacks since their F stomp will stiffen your opponent and their sideways left click into right click does a lot of damage immediately. They also have great damage and CC for those final duels at the end of the match, so Berserker is another good all-around choice. Dark Knight has some great AoE super armor attacks, but unfortunately they are currently bugged and do not benefit from offhand AP, so you'll be at a disadvantage until that bug gets fixed. Wizard and Witch are great at kiting in solos and very strong in 3v3. Tamer, Sork, and Mystic are all useful in 3v3 for their CC, but lack damage right now to feel effective in solos, so I would avoid those 3 classes unless you are already familiar with them from the regular game, in which case you can try them out and see if you have some success. Any other classes that I haven't mentioned are not yet available to play in this mode, and we are not sure what the future plans are for adding them. There are no awakened abilities in Shadow Arena, and all the skills you loot are level 1. Since looting skills is random, just like looting gear, you may not get the exact skills you want every game, so you'll need to learn how to work with what you have. Prioritize any chests that you see, since they die more quickly than monsters and have a higher chance to drop skills. You can automatically equip any upgrades by pressing G. Gear is simplified in the Shadow Arena, so you don't need to make any complicated decisions about gear choice. If the game says to press G, then just press G. All belts give DP, all necks give AP, and rings and earrings give half of each. Just like the normal game, white items are the worst, followed by green, then blue, and yellow items are the best. The only stat trade-offs exist on offhands, in which Rosar and Kreia, the blue shields, have the same stat totals except Kreia has 5 more AP and 5 less DP. Still, it's fine to just mash since the game will pick the higher AP item, and AP is what you want, so just press that G key. Similarly, if you're lucky enough to loot both Kudum and Nuver in the same game, the G button will prioritize Nuver since it has 10 more AP, even though both items have the same total stats, so again, just mash G. Generally, you want to avoid fighting in the beginning, especially if you're up against a Berserker. It takes too long to kill somebody with basic attacks, and even if you get a good drop right at the beginning, your opponent will probably just run away from you. Even if you do manage to kill them, they'll hardly drop any loot, so either way, it's kind of a waste of your first few minutes. It's better to wait until you have at least 1 good CC and 1 good damage skill, plus around 200 AP, and then you can start being more aggressive. There are higher densities of monsters as well as characters around the black towers that spawn across the map, which means you're more likely to run into players around those towers as well if you do decide to be aggressive. It's possible, however, to play Shadow Arena very passive and stealthy, avoiding all fights until the very end, and then using gimmicks to win, which we'll showcase a little bit later. The arena has no nameplates and a fixed camera angle, so it's actually quite easy to use terrain to hide and set up traps. At some point throughout the game, Red Nose will spawn somewhere on the map, and when he dies, he drops a guaranteed yellow item. If you see him early in the game, it's almost certainly worth taking 30 seconds to kill him. Just be careful, pretty much all of his attacks will stun or knock you down. So approach him, do a little bit of damage, and then block, and then repeat. If you see Red Nose in one of the final circles, be much more cautious, as you're much more likely to be spotted fighting him by other players who can jump you while you're distracted or stunned. In this early fight, I'm against another warrior, but both of us have limited skills to use. Since all I really have is my spear for CC and Scars of Dusk for damage, I'm doing a lot of blocking or dodging while waiting for my cooldowns to come up. Health bars are invisible, so I'm also trying to get a read on my opponent based on how aggressive he is, and based on how much health I'm losing, in order to decide if I should continue fighting or flee. I'm not taking a ton of damage here, and I know I've looted a good amount of AP and DP at this point, so I continue to wear him down. Right as I throw this spear, he turns around, giving me his back and also telegraphing that he wants to escape. I assume this means his health is low, so I give chase, pop a swiftness potion, and finish him off when my spear comes off cooldown. Another thing to keep in mind is the gear that your opponent has equipped. The top 3 armor pieces are all very easy to identify. Akum, the 3rd best chest piece, is a dark coat with black fur on the top. Lemuria, the 2nd best chest piece, is what I'm wearing right now. It's a metal tunic with green cloth underneath. And Red Nose, the best chest piece, is a grayish jerkin with dinky shoulder pads and a lot of skin showing. It almost looks like the starting armor for some classes, so be careful not to get those mixed up. I'll show you a Red Nose in this match a little bit later. Of course, there are 11 other item slots besides the chest piece, so it doesn't tell the whole story, but it's one factor that you can use when deciding if it's worth taking a fight or running. The other boss pieces are fairly obvious too, with Beg's gloves looking like scales across your arm. Gaiath is the big white predator looking helmet. It's pretty much the only helmet in Shadow Arena that has a graphic. And Muskin's shoes are like little knee socks that have pink spikes coming out of them. You'll recognize them when you see them. Let's take a look at consumables at the bottom of the screen. Heal potions on Z and swiftness potions on V are both a 60-second duration with a 60-second cooldown. You guys saw me use one of the swiftness potions earlier. You start with one heal and 1 swiftness potion per match, so I used my swiftness potion to chase down that warrior earlier. The health potion is not instant, but rather a buff that grants you increased regeneration over time. Obviously, try to keep your health topped off and use your swiftness potions whenever you need to chase or escape. Swiftness potions will also grant you jump heights, which allows you to sprint leap over rivers or hop fences without getting a climb animation. Firebombs on X, you start with 3 of those at the beginning of the match. They have a bit of an animation to them, so be careful throwing those because it's possible to get knocked down while you're in that animation. But if you hit an opponent with a firebomb, it will slow their move speed. It's a good idea to use one if you think somebody's about to run, but be careful using it mid-fight because it's, like I said, it's very likely that you'll get stunned or knocked down while you're throwing one. Flashbangs on C are very powerful CCs. You don't start with any of those, but if you get them, don't forget to use them. They can often give you enough time to loop behind your opponent and back attack them to death before they can escape, so you won't even need to put a combo together. You just stun somebody, run behind them, and do as much damage as you can before the flashbang wears off. You can also flashbang somebody who is running on the edge of the dark fog, and if the dark fog is closing in, the flashbang will last long enough to keep them stunned and get them killed by the Black Spirit, and you won't even have to do anything. Although, of course, you won't be able to get their loot if that happens. Finally, stun traps on B. You also don't start with any of those, but they seem pretty common to loot. They can be placed on the ground and have a similar stun duration to flashbangs, but only if you can get your opponent to walk near one. Usually these are best saved for the end of the game when the arena is small, and you can bait aggressive opponents to come towards you in a limited space. Regarding the dark fog, there are 2 mechanics to be aware of. Just being in the dark will deal about 25 damage per second, but additionally, being in the fog for more than about 2 or 3 seconds will spawn a Black Spirit monster that does a large AoE attack which one-shot kills. Since the attack is an AoE, it will not only kill the person in the fog, but anyone around them, including people who are not in the fog, so watch out for that. If you're anywhere near the fog, not just inside it, you risk dying to Black Spirit explosions triggered by their players. So here this warrior is wearing the red nose armor that I mentioned earlier. If you kind of take a look, you're going to want to memorize what this looks like. It looks pretty similar on most classes. You can see his arms are all visible. He's got symmetrical shoulder pads, and he's got that kind of gray tribal shirt piece on with the kind of bone-looking necklace. Anyways, the Black Spirit also appears in underground caves and cave entrances. Some of the placement for the Black Spirit mobs is wonky, so just avoid cave entrances altogether. There's even some caves, one in particular, that turns up in the final circle a lot around Northern Wheat Plantation, where if you stand on top of the cave, I think it might actually be that rock over to the right that we just saw. If you stand on top of those rocks, you can actually die to Black Spirits underneath them. So just kind of be aware of that and avoid caves entirely until they get some of those kinks worked out. As you approach the top 10, be very aware of your surroundings while looting. Other players know at this point that the loot is very high value, and you will attract a lot of attention if you're standing in one spot picking up items. You can use this to your advantage if you know somebody is eyeballing you, place a stun trap and bait them, but also be careful of any ranged CCs they might have, especially if it's a wizard or a witch. Your trap might not be able to hold them off. Your loot that you get not only makes you stronger in the fight, but also increases the amount of silver that is mailed to you at the end of the game. So you'll have to decide how much of a risk you're willing to take when it comes to grabbing people's gear in those final couple of circles. Also keep in mind that picking up yellow items does the cheer animation, which stuns you but also gives you an iframe, so that's a bit of a double-edged sword. Sometimes you can avoid a CC, and sometimes it'll just kind of leave you vulnerable for someone to open up an attack on you while you're in the middle of looting. There's an insane buff you can loot from something called a Dark Vase, which seems to spawn about once per circle. Since it can spawn anywhere in the circle, you probably won't see one until the very end, and some games you won't see one at all. It looks like some of the vases that you'll see lying around the map anyways, except usually it'll be out of place in the middle of a field or something. Kill it and loot it for 60 seconds steroid that increases speed, damage, armor, pretty much all your stats. Even if your gear is halfway decent by this time, if you find a vase, the buff should be more than enough to destroy anyone who fights you 1v1, as long as you get some kind of opening CC. Another thing to keep an eye on in the top 10 is kill feed. By now, you'll generally see some people with 8, 10, or 12 kills, and you'll see their class as well. Based on how few people are left, and based on how aggressive players around you are being, you can usually figure out who has the kill streak, and therefore who probably has the best gear and represents the strongest threat. In this case, there's a Valkyrie with a ton of kills, so I'm keeping an eye out for her. And I'm also keeping an eye out for anyone with any purple glow, because that's what characters look like if they have that vase buff that I mentioned earlier. I haven't seen any other crazy kill streaks, so I'm being pretty aggressive on everyone I see other than the Valk, but I am still keeping an eye out because I know that if she just gets a single CC on me, she's probably 300 plus AP at this point, so one stun from that Valk is probably enough to kill me. So I'm going to be keeping an eye out on her as best I can. But everyone else I'm still going to be engaging pretty hard because I want to get that loot. I want to catch up to the Valkyrie, and I want to be equipped to deal with her in that final fight that I know is coming soon. So in a few moments here, I'm finally going to spot the Valk, and when I do see her, I'm going to be engaging her very carefully. I'm going to be keeping my block up. I don't want her to get any kind of knockdown on me. And you'll notice, there she is. So I open with the stiffen, I go in, I get some damage, she backs off, and instead of chasing after her, I'm kind of backpedaling a little bit, keeping my S block here. I'm really nervous. I know that there's only 4 people left. I know this is the Valk, so I'm kind of approaching her, but I don't have my grab. The wizard also recognizes her as a threat, and so we kind of ignore each other temporarily here and dogpile the Valk because neither one of us wanted to be alone with her in the final 2. So the other player died to the fog, which leaves just me and this wizard. At this point, I'm feeling pretty confident and excited. I feel like I've got this one in the bag. Unfortunately, in my excitement, I failed to notice the stun trap that he's placed just at the edge of the fog. If you look in just a second here to the right of his foot, you can see it on the ground there. So I charge towards him and I run right into that trap, just completely on top of it. He baits me right into it. And he starts doing some damage to me, but then instead decides to run into the fog and spawn the Black Spirit. The Black Spirit spawns and one-shots me in the back, even though I'm inside the arena. So, He wins first place just by using that Black Spirit kill. Like I said, you don't necessarily need to be super geared or aggressive to win, and if you get unlucky with drops or skills, there are clever ways to finish people off. So congratulations to whoever this guy is, and I hope you guys had fun watching. If you have any other questions about this mode, feel free to post them in the comments, and catch me playing some Shadow Arena live over on twitch.tv/MorlandTV. Take care, everybody.